You are listening to the Beltway Wars Invitational Podcast, hosted by Adam Jackson and Patrick Wilton. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Week 3 recap in the Beltway Wars Invitational. I'm Patrick, he's Adam. And 3 weeks in. I mean, we're at a point in the season, Adam, that like week 1, you don't know what's going to happen. You've got all your kind of draft perceptions and ideas and thoughts coming out of the draft. Those are proven wrong. Some of them in week 1, you freak out, you course correct, you kind of look for waiver wire guys that went kind of undrafted. You're doing that. Then you get week 2 and things get flipped on their head. And so sometimes you're left with like 2 completely different narratives for any particular player. Week 3, I feel like after 3 weeks, you have a little bit bigger of a sample size, and all of your opinions get formed by those first couple weeks, and you feel like certainly a lot more than we did just a couple weeks ago. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it does seem like some of the teams are really kind of making a name for themselves. I mean, Mike being 3-0, the only 3-0 team in the league. But, you also have a lot of questions about some of these teams that are 1-2. I mean, half the league is now 1-2. We have no 0-3 team thus far or at all because everyone has a win. So, there's still a lot of weeks to play. A lot of things can happen. We've seen collapses. We've seen people come back from the grave and go on to win the championship. So even though we're getting a better idea of how the league is formulated this go-round, a lot of games left to be played in the season.
That's for sure. And sort of speaking to what you mentioned, the parity in this league, the fact that we've got one 3-0 team, we've got no teams that are winless through 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We also had, and we'll get into the matchups, of course, but we had our 2 top scoring teams from this week were I believe they were 11 and 12 in the standings coming into week 3. So from the bottom to the top for Sarah and Josh, we'll get into the games starting with Sarah's team here in a moment. But last night we do have to just, I guess, mention the elephant in the room that the Ravens really shit the bed again. And also had a lead in this one a couple times and could not hold it. Didn't have that killer instinct that everybody was talking about after week 1, that loss to the Bills. That killer instinct to close out games. What do you make of it, Adam? Where do we go from here?
I mean, I think Dustin kind of brought it up the best in the group chat where he said, are the Ravens now the Bengals? With Joe Burrow with his prolific offense and the defense that can't stop anybody, where you have to score 40 points a week just to get a win, it's starting to look like that. I mean, the Lions going, what was it? They had like 2 or 3 drives of 90-plus yards. It was crazy. They were moving the ball down the field. I don't know if you saw, but every time they snapped the ball, it looked like the Lions' offensive line was really pushing the Ravens' defensive line back. That was opening up holes, especially for David Montgomery, who looked fantastic last night. So lots of concerns on the defensive front. The offense looks, pretty good, other than Derrick Henry's fumbling issues. But with Justin Matabike hopefully coming back soon, Jair Alexander hopefully coming back soon, because they were kind of saying that he's been inactive because he didn't get over a knee injury. So they're kind of a little wary about that. But as we get healthier and plug up that middle, hopefully the rest of the pieces fall into play. But I'm not ready to count the Ravens out yet. I mean, 2 out of the 3 games were against the premier teams with the Bills and the Lions. So not ready to count them out yet. We got, do we have Kansas City this week? Is that what we have this week? We have Kansas City this week, who is hungry for a win as well. So we will see how that goes in Arrowhead as well. Not ideal, but the Ravens need to win as well. So it should be a good game. I think it's Sunday at 4:25.
Yeah, I was sort of thinking about this earlier today, this upcoming matchup with the Chiefs, and to some degree, like it seems weird to think this. I don't even know why this popped in my head. Well, I do know why, and I'll tell you why. But are the Chiefs just what the doctor ordered for us right now? Like what we have really struggled to do, one of the many things on defense we've struggled to do is stop the run. The Chiefs, as we've talked about on the pod here in the last couple of weeks, cannot run the ball
Yeah.
right now. As you like to say, the corpse of Kareem Hunt, and now the very aging, not quite corpse yet, but the kind of
The
decline
oldest
of Isaiah
26-year-old.
Pacheco.
Isaiah Pacheco.
Man, yeah, he's kind of aging very quickly. He just does not look spry. They have not been able
Yeah.
to run the ball. Mahomes is making magic happen, but will it help our defense to get an offense that is down a bunch of weapons? Still has a lot to play for because it's an important game record-wise, and just the fact that it's the Chiefs. Could this be a good thing, I think, for this team?
I'm not as optimistic as you, just because Steve Spagnuolo is still on that defensive
Yep.
coaching staff for Kansas City. He always plays Lamar pretty well. He game plans for him pretty well. So could this be, one of the lower scoring games that we see with the Ravens play this year? Could be. Chiefs have a very underrated defense as well. Ravens, I think, have a better defense than what they're showing. So could be a lower scoring game. I could definitely foresee that. Be like a 24-20, or like 20-16 kind of game. I could definitely see that. I will not make predictions.
We will see. We will see. Yeah, no, don't jinx us there. I already jinxed us enough last night in that game. All right, well, let's get into it. Enough of the pregame. Let's get into the show here. We're going to start off with our highest scoring team, which is what we used to do.
Yep.
And we'll continue to do Sarah, the Pasadena Pulverizers, getting the win over the Penn Prairie Wolves, 184-26 to 107-96, a complete and utter blowout. And Sarah gets this huge performance with 0 from her number 1 pick, CeeDee Lamb, who exits this game with 0 points, an injury that likely is going to hold him out. It seems like at least a few weeks, but a really impressive performance regardless. In fact, we always used to talk about it. I still don't know that it's ever happened where a team in our league has double-digit points from every player.
Yeah.
And Sarah was a half a point short from her kicker. It was Jake Bates, right, last night in the Ravens
and he missed
game.
a field goal.
Yeah. And he missed it
was a long field goal.
Was it the 67-yard or something like that? But boy, that could have been a really wild way for Sarah to become the first team to ever have all of her starters. Well, I'm sorry, CeeDee Lamb, 0.
Yeah, other than CeeDee Lamb. I was going to say.
Okay. Forgot the 0 there. That's
no, but I mean, still very impressive for sure.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and and did it without even that great of a performance from Pat Mahomes right at the top. Just 1 touchdown in this one. They were able to score enough against the Giants. Didn't need to run it up in that one. So that's only 13 fantasy points. But her running backs, man, 3 of them this week. Jonathan Taylor, 31.
Yeah.
Marion Hampton, 21. All of a sudden now, Najee Harris leaves this game. He's out for the year. Hampton, boy, he becomes a must-start running back. And, oh, by the way, Jordan Mason, that's 116 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns filling in for Aaron Jones. So 3 elite running backs this week. It may be like 1, 2, and 3 on the week. I'm not really sure, Adam.
Yeah.
I'm not going to click them all, but very impressive there. The wide receivers didn't need to do much, but they did. Keenan Allen, 7 for 11, 65 yards, another touchdown. I think that's touchdowns in 3 straight games for the veteran Charger there, Keenan Allen. Chris Olave, 10 for 14. Didn't score a touchdown, but 10 targets and 57 yards. 10 receptions and 57 yards. That's double digits in a half-point PPR league. So Olave not going to score a lot, perhaps, but he's getting the volume to sort of keep a pretty decent floor here early in the season. We did have Mark Andrews blow up game in week 3, 6 for 6, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns, looking like vintage Mark Andrews in this one. Made a couple really fantastic catches, one especially for a touchdown. We mentioned Jake Bates, the kicker, 9.5 points, and 34
Yeah.
points from the Vikings as they absolutely dismantled the Cincinnati Bengals in week 3. What a wild game. 3 fumble recoveries, 2 defensive touchdowns, 4 sacks, 2 interceptions, a wild, wild defensive effort for the Vikings. And then on the bench, George Pickens. We're going to need to talk about him
Yeah.
as we go for the next couple weeks with Lamb, his injury. Pickens gets into the end zone in this one, 15 fantasy points. And Hunter Henry, you get the full Hunter Henry experience in week 3. He pops for these 2 touchdown games every now and then. 90 yards, 2 scores for 25 fantasy points. So an interesting name there. So, Adam, what do you make of it? Lots to choose from here. A smorgasbord of people to choose from for your beast in week 2.
Well, can I just, before we get to the beast, after week 3, Hunter Henry is the #1 overall ranked tight end in fantasy football. If you have that bet, congratulations to you. You are a fortune teller, and you should tell me the Powerball numbers next week. However, my beast for this week, and I think just, it's obviously not going to be the highest scoring on this squad, but I think it's the most interesting one just to kind of talk about, and that's going to be on Marion Hampton. 21 points here, 17 carries, 70 yards, a touchdown. The involvement in the passing game really exploded here this week. 7 targets, 6 receptions for 59 yards against a tough Denver defense now. 21 points against a very good Denver defense. Now running back number 21 on the season. I mean, the sky is the limit for him. I mean, you have to start thinking top 12 running back now. He is the only one there. Najee Harris is out for the year. The next guy is Hassan Haskins. Never heard of him before in my life. Only played 8% of snaps last week. I do not foresee him, going into his workload. He is, a top draft pick in the draft, and they're going to be using him a ton. He is my beast for Sarah's squad this week.
Yeah, look, Marion Hampton drafted as the 14th running back off the board in the Beltway Wars draft this year, and you just said it. Now probably bumped up a couple spots into the kind of running back one, sort of top 12 range there for Marion Hampton. How about the opposite side of the coin here? Who struggled? And I don't know if you can pick Lamb, but there's not many options on other struggles for Sarah's team. Who is your bust this week?
So I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes with 13 points against a very plus matchup against the Giants. Didn't really have to do too much. The score was a little closer than what I expected. Just with this 37 attempts, 22 completions, only 224 yards and 1 touchdown. Also, if you're looking at his stats, first 2 weeks really ran the ball a lot. 57 yards, 66 yards in week 2, only 2 yards this week. I don't really think they needed him to do that, but after 2 weeks, so before last week, he was the leading rusher on their team. So you really, really like to see that rushing ability from Patrick Mahomes. If he can continue to do that, that would definitely bump up his fantasy value, but I don't know if you can really expect that going forward with Mahomes. So, is this score closer to what we expect going forward, or are the 26-point games, closer to what we should expect? I think it's kind of closer to this 13 to 15. I think I'm going to see a lot more of these just because of the rushing attempts than we are going to be seeing in the mid-20s or even low 30s for Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, interesting to see his first 2 weeks were so good against very competent, very good opponents in the Chargers and the Eagles. His struggle in week 3 was against a bad team. On the schedule next are some kind of weak defenses that have given up a lot of points this year, including the Ravens next week, Jacksonville the week after that, and then Detroit and Las Vegas. So certainly some matchups that if It may be game script dependent. I don't know with Mahomes. It might be a little bit game script dependent.
Yeah, because looking at this, a lot like Baltimore, Detroit, Washington, these are games that are going to be close. So I feel like his rushing ability will come out more if the game is close. So he'll be forced to run more, which helps Sarah's fantasy value for Mahomes. So I think it's going to be a kind of an up and down season for him, and that's kind of hard to kind of count on him being so swinging up and down.
All right, big question for the pulverizers. We alluded to it earlier. Sarah's going to lose CeeDee Lamb for what looks like multiple weeks. I think it's with him, it's his ankle, right? It's a high ankle sprain, I think, for Lamb. Potentially low grade high ankle is, I think, what I saw earlier today. But certainly losing your first round pick is not ideal.
Yeah.
But how well positioned is Sarah? We've talked about her handcuff strategy here of two Cowboys and two Saints wide receivers. Shaheed is a nice bench option, but the fact that she currently is able to throw Pickens into the lineup to completely replace CeeDee Lamb, he will be the lead target getter between him and tight end Jake Ferguson for Dallas. But also number 7 wide receiver on the year, the veteran. We'll see if Keenan Allen can keep this up for the Chargers. It certainly seems sustainable early on the season. And then, Chris Olave, who we mentioned is getting a whole bunch of targets for the Saints. So how well positioned is Sarah to sustain a multi-week injury to her first round pick?
I mean, she does the rare wide receiver handcuff, and this is why you do it. I mean, he perfectly slides into that number 1 wide receiver for Dallas. He's probably going to be a high-end wide receiver 2 going forward. A really nice replacement. He's going to be, like I said, number 1 or number 2 option there in Dallas. So very well positioned. I mean, it's kind of like she predicted it. I'm not saying that she's a witch. I'm just saying she might have predicted this. That CeeDee Lamb gets injured, you can just plug and forget with George Pickens. And that's what she'll be doing in week 4.
All right, moving on to the losing side of the ball here. It is the Penn Prairie Wolves. Jake Krieger's team falls to 1-2, 11 in the standings. His first week starting Aaron Rodgers, I think. We talked about it last time. Is that going to be the guy that Jake goes out and gets? It was interesting. We both put $7 bids in for Daniel Jones that week. I ended up getting him based on waiver order, which doesn't always happen. And then Jake ended up getting Rodgers for $6. So interesting how that worked out last week as waivers ran. But Rodgers, not a great game here. They beat New England, but he scores just 11 fantasy points in this one. Also struggling for the running back position is Dylan Sampson, the rookie for the Browns, who, Jake asked me before this game. He got my thoughts on Sampson versus McNichols. I told him Sampson just, I don't know. We've seen Sampson this year. We haven't really seen a whole lot from McNichols, so that didn't work out. McNichols ended up scoring a long touchdown on the bench for Jake. Sampson ends with 0.2 fantasy points.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey, don't even need to say it, 19 fantasy points. 10 for 15.
That's such a Christian McCaffrey line. like even with the no touchdowns, it's just, involvement everywhere. It's crazy.
17 carries, 15 targets. That's what they call that opportunities, right? So 32 opportunities is ridiculous. Speaking of opportunities, it was Antonio Brown, 10 targets. Good to see.
AJ Brown.
Who did I say?
You said Antonio, not CT. Antonio Brown. No,
AJ Brown, probably the better receiver of the two, if I'm being honest. 6 for 10, True. 109 and a touchdown. He pairs that receiver performance with Jackson Smith and Jigba's 18 and Ricky Pearsall's 15. So a really nice week for the wide receivers on this team.
Yeah.
Sam Laporta, 4 for 4 for 33. Brandon McManus, 4 points. 49ers, 7 points. Hollywood Brown in the flex, 6 points. Nothing special there. Not a whole lot otherwise to talk about here. Remember, Jake does have Aaron Jones on IR after the injury last week. Does get a touchdown from Dalton Kincaid, former Adams team alumnus here. But Yeah, I mean, just a 107 points this week for Jake. Not
Yeah.
terrible. Kind of middle of the pack probably, but does just run into a buzzsaw here with Sarah's team. Who's your elite performer? Who's your beast for Jake?
It's gonna have to be AJ Brown. I mean, coming back with his first dominant performance of 2025, 19 points, 10 targets, 6 catches, 109. It looked like they were really trying to get him involved in this game. I know it was a very close game. They came down to a last-second field goal block for a touchdown to stop the Rams from winning it. So it looked like they tried to get him involved. I'm just concerned is, again, kind of which week is the true week? Is it the 10 targets with 6 catches week, or is it the 1 target with 1 reception week? What's closer to the truth? Looking next week, you have Tampa Bay, Denver, then the Giants. Some teams that can boat race a little bit, so maybe his involvement will be more than what it has been in the past. Still concerned, but this is actually, truly a good first step in the right direction for AJ Brown.
Yeah, we talk about sample size after 3 weeks. So far, what the sample is telling us is that when the Eagles are in a come from behind game script like they were this week, the receivers may have some more success compared to when they're either leading, which we figure they will do more often than not.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit more of a lean week for those 2 elite wide receivers. Let's move over to your bust this week.
Yeah, so my bust is going to be Hollywood Brown. Only 6 targets in this one for 4 receptions. It's just like he doesn't have much competition there in Kansas City. So, the first week where he has 16 targets, and you're thinking, wow, okay, he's good for 10 targets a game, 8 to 10 targets a game. Then he goes to 5 targets to 6 targets. It's just kind of the player that he is now. He's been in the league 6 years now, which, it seems like he was a rookie yesterday. But it just seems like now with Xavier Worthy being out, you have Hollywood Brown, you have Thornton, you have Juju Smith-Schuster as well. Travis Kelce still there. Noah Gray's catching some passes. It just seems like you're never going to be able to tell who's going to be the top performer in this Chiefs offense in terms of the pass catchers. It's going to be a lot of whack-a-mole. 1 week it's going to be Travis Kelce. 1 week is going to be Juju Smith-Schuster. 1 week is going to be Hollywood Brown. And it's going to be impossible to try to figure out who's going to be that week, who they're game planning around. So, it's just one of the things, wide receivers, boom or bust. And he is definitely a boom or bust candidate going forward.
I don't know if you named Tyquan Thornton, but he is catching a few balls here and there as well. And they also have another rookie that they like. I think his name is Royals. Is that right?
Jason Browley. That's the only one I see. Nico.
Jalen Royals. Rookie Jalen Royals. I think he's been hurt, but
I don't even see
kind of a name to look out for.
Okay.
I'm not. He may not be on the depth chart, but they seem.
Jalen Royals. Yeah, he's right there. Yep.
Yeah, 4th round pick. So just the number of either unknown or mediocre weapons on this team kind of is just hard to predict, as you said, from week to week.
Yep.
Anyway, okay, Jake's. So mercifully, at least for Jake, there were no further injuries after he lost Joe Burrow last week and Aaron Jones last week. Burrow for the season. Jake is now 1-2. With the pieces that he still has healthy, where do you draw the over-under line for wins this year for Jake's team? We play 14 weeks.
If I was a sports book, I think you're putting it at 7. I think that's where you're putting it. You have concerns at the quarterback position with Aaron Rodgers. What's he going to be? You have concerns at the second running back position as well. They had Samson here. Who else can really fill in for him? Is it McNichols? Is it Brian Robinson? I mean, there's nothing really here that's going to get consistent work. We have the questions about Hollywood Brown. We even have the questions about AJ Brown. So too many question marks to put this win total at a high point. I would say 6 to 7, with the holes in this starting lineup and the bench depth issues are real concerns to me.
All right, 6.5 is the line.
6.5.
I think that's about right. I think I'm going to take the under
Okay.
on it. I think those two injuries are just really tough. And if you're talking like McNichols versus Sampson, who's starting, I don't like it.
Yeah,
I don't like it at all.
just looking at this matchup, you have Sampson versus Hampton. It's kind of like, the disparity there is going to be very hard to overcome.
For sure. All right, moving to our next matchup. We talked about Sarah. We talk about husband Josh. Josh and the Curtis Bay Chum Buckets get the win. Second highest point total on the week, 131.44 to 96.74 for your Union Bridge Badgers. Jalen Hurts, a guy that you were concerned about last week. He comes out again, game script. They were trailing to the Rams. He gets 29 points in this one, throwing for 3 touchdowns and only 1 on the ground. So the 3 throwing touchdowns, very nice for Jalen Hurts. The running backs struggled a little bit in this one. Alvin Kamara, despite 18 carries, wasn't able to do much with them for 6 fantasy points. And Josh Jacobs also did not reach 10. He ends up with 9.9, 16 for 30. Yikes, in the efficiency standpoint. Saved his day a little bit by catching 5 balls for 44 yards. Further down the lineup here, the receivers, Puka Nacua, doing Puka Nacua type things. We talked about him last week. He's just the Energizer Bunny out on the field. He's doing everything. Had a carry for 6 yards, but 11 for 15 for over 100 in this one.
Yeah.
Really nice game. Does get 7.5 out of the aforementioned Juju Smith-Schuster. Not sure if you'd call him a corpse yet, but certainly not far from it, right? How old is Juju now? 28. He's still 28.
He's still 20. That's crazy. I feel like he's been in the league for 20 years.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Fellow 28-year-old Jacoby Myers, 7 fantasy points in this game. Kind of interesting. He was going to be the number 1 in this offense, behind Bowers, of course, but they did have Trey Tucker, who's a guy, I think, not rostered right now, that had 3 touchdowns in week 3. Tight end Ferguson for the Cowboys. That's a guy whose arrow is pointed up with the loss of CeeDee Lamb for at least a couple weeks. It looks like 14.7 fantasy points on 14 targets. Njoku still not really breaking out this year. Chase McLaughlin, the kicker. I know you appreciate a good kicker performance. 22.6 on 5 field goals in this one.
Yeah.
Not much to talk about other than this on the bench. Of course, Xavier Worthy, Juwan Jennings, both injured, both did not play in this one. So you expect that those guys will be back here in the next week or 2. So that would certainly give Josh a few more options here. All that said, where do you find your beast this week for Josh?
I mean, I don't like to pick the obvious one, so I'm not going to do it. But I just want to talk about Puka because Puka is awesome.
Yeah.
I think you said this last week where he might be your favorite player to watch that's a non-Raven. And I think I agree. I mean, now the number 1 overall ranked wide receiver in fantasy, he just kind of like accepted that Cooper Kupp role of a few years ago with the Rams. He just gets peppered with targets. They don't care. They find a way to get him open. They get the ball in his hands. And, even the yards per target, I mean, 11, 10, and 7, a little down this week, but still with 15 targets, 112 yards, he is a menace when he's on the field. It doesn't matter. They'll put him in the slot. They'll put him on the outside. They'll put him in the backfield. They will get him the ball. He is my beast for the week and my beast for the season because I don't see him slowing down at all unless, of course, an unfortunate injury. But, had to be happy thus far where you got him in the draft. I think he was drafted in the 2nd round. Number 1 wide receiver, 12th player overall. Good things, and he hasn't scored a touchdown yet. So, number 1 wide receiver in fantasy without scoring a touchdown, a receiving touchdown rather. Love to see that.
Yeah, nothing to add there. I co-sign on all of that. How about your bust for this week?
So my bust for this week is going to be Alvin Kamara. It was a tough matchup. Something to keep in mind, though, looking at his snap percentage, a little bit down than it has been in the first 2 weeks, 74%. I'm interested to see if Miller got any more looks. He was at 27, so nothing really there, but just kind of a down week against a tough defense on the road against Seattle. Seattle got ahead very, very early. I don't know if they pulled for the backups or not, but only 2.3 yards per carry, not really much involvement in the passing game. And that's something you see with Kamara is that when they get behind, he still has a lot of value because he'll catch the ball out of the backfield. Nothing doing in this one. I'm not concerned as of yet, but now running back number 22, you're expecting a little more. Only one touchdown this season thus far. He's the bright spot in that offense other than maybe Chris Olave. So you're hoping that he would have had more red zone or touchdown chances through 3 weeks.
We talked about the tight ends. We talked about Njoku and Ferguson, and Ferguson had the really great week. We talked about CeeDee Lamb being out, and we've talked also that Josh has a couple names on the bench here, like Xavier Worthy, like Juwan Jennings, that you might want to work in within the next couple weeks if they come back from injury and are big parts of their offense, which I suspect that they will be. Does that make the fact that he started 2 tight ends this week, Njoku and Ferguson. Ferguson,
soul.
I think, is very, very clearly the better option right now, given the circumstances. Njoku may not even be the best tight end on his team.
Yeah.
Ferguson may be the best pass catcher while CeeDee Lamb is out. While Lamb is out, do you buy or sell Ferguson as a top 5 tight end?
I think I'm going to buy it. I think it's around 4 or 5. But, just with the targets, look at the targets even with CeeDee Lamb played last week, 12 targets.
Yep.
So that has to be now the bottom of what his target share is going to be each and every week. He only played 50% of snaps, too, 57% of snaps as well in this one. So the sky is the limit. He is now tight end number 6, and now with CeeDee Lamb possibly being out 3 to 4 weeks, I can only see that going more. He'll get red zone looks. He'll, get first or second looks from Dak Prescott. Sky's the limit for him right now, and I totally buy that he's a top 5 tight end going forward.
Just to boot, the next 2 of the next 3 matchups for Ferguson are against very bottom defenses when it comes to defending the tight end. The Packers, believe it or not, they're a great defense, but they give up a ton of points to the tight end. That's next week's matchup in a game that the Cowboys will probably be coming from behind and throwing quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then Carolina in week 6, also one of the worst teams at defending the tight end.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving over, we have to talk about your team, Adam. I don't know if you want to, but we're going to.
Did you have a big question? Oh, yeah, you did. You did with the tight ends.
That was it, yeah. Jake Ferguson, yep. Buy or sell. And you bought it, right?
I bought
Ferguson, top 5. All right. Your team, the Union Bridge Badgers, 96.74. Take the loss in this one. Drop down to number 10 in the standings at 1-2. Dak Prescott, man, what a disappointing week. A lot of people had this game pegged as a shootout here with Dallas and Chicago. Chicago lived up to their side of the bargain. Dak and the Cowboys did not. Probably a good time to talk about. I'll pause right there. I actually want to get your thoughts very quickly on what impact CeeDee Lamb's injury has on your team, especially with Dak Prescott.
It can't be good. I do think they have a lot of weapons. I don't think that they're going to not throw the ball anymore just because CeeDee Lamb's out. That's proved not to be the case. I think it does take Dak a little bit down, but, what am I going to do? I have to roll with him where I drafted him. Does have some tougher matchups coming up here. Green Bay. Jets are kind of a wash, and Carolina is actually a good matchup. So next week definitely does scare me with Green Bay because that is a very good team. And Micah Parsons, there's a revenge game against Dallas. He's going to be playing with an extra chip on his shoulder trying to get to Prescott. So a little concerned about that, but I got to roll with them no matter who's on the field in terms of pass catchers.
All right. Well, noticeably missing from your team this week, Adam, was a kind of breakout performer. You had Devin Achane 12, Tyreek Hill 13, DJ Moore 10. mediocre to solid, but nobody really breaking out. Calvin Ridley, just 3 points in this one. Travis Etienne, 11 points in this one. So a
Yep.
lot of okay, but not a whole lot of like guy that's going to win you your week, that's
Yeah.
going to just go out there and get 25 or 30 points. Like some of the players we talked about for Sarah's team. Uh, on the bench, Michael Pittman, maybe he's a guy, 6 for 6,
Yeah.
73 yards and a touchdown. I believe was he your top scoring player on your roster? I think he was
Yes.
16.3 fantasy points. So there you go. Potentially an option
Yeah.
moving forward. Kittle is still on IR. So Tracy now, by the way, not only has he been overtaken by Cam Scattaboo in New York, but now he is dealing with a injury that I think is pretty serious, right?
2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. By that time, we'll see how Scattaboo, if he is able to lock down that #1 job for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
All right. Where is the beast this week?
So the Beast, I'm just going to say it just because I think better days are ahead. And he was my top performer this week, was Tyreek Hill. I'm liking the targets. It's going up.
Mm-hmm.
Tua's looking, not great, but better. He's looking for Tyreek Hill. He scored his first touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Now wide receiver number 22. He has the Jets, Carolina, and the Chargers coming up. He is the #1 option. If Tua can just get more accurate, just a little bit more, I just need it not 20 feet over Tyreek's head. I need it like 7 feet over his head, and then he can actually catch the ball. But I like where the targets are going. It's gone up in the last 3 weeks. I foresee it to be around 8 to 10. He can break off one of those games. I know this game's coming where it's going to have 170 yards and a touchdown. It's around the corner. I just don't know when it's going to happen, but I think it's going to happen. So he is my beast for this week, just for the upward trajectory that I'm seeing in terms of targets, receptions, and he had his first touchdown this week.
Yes, I'm starting him in another league regularly. It's a stacked team, and I'm hoping that he's going to hang on and be able to be a reliable starter, because his high end upside is higher than anybody in the league when he does what we know he can do. We'll see if Tua Tagovailoa can get it together. Where is your bust on this roster this week?
I mean, I can look everywhere. Can I just say my team is very hard to watch on Sundays? It's like red zone's going. You see Jonathan Taylor scoring 20 touchdowns. You see Jalen Hurts, running the ball in. And I'm just like, where are my players? I don't see any of them here. But I would have to say that my bust is going to have to be Calvin Ridley. It's just like bad right now. I'm not watching a lot of Tennessee games, but apparently he's just like dropping the ball, like concentration issues, not getting on the same page with Cam Ward. You look at the 7 targets, which, is fair, but only 1 reception. And he, like I said, he's having drop problems. He's kind of being overshadowed by the wide receiver 2, Illuminor, here in the Tennessee offense. Now wide receiver number 71, not paying off thus far. And I am definitely concerned, and that is why Pittman's going to be starting next week over Calvin Ridley.
All right. Well, you spoiled my big question there, but let's get into it. Michael Pittman, we talked about he's your highest scoring player this week on your bench, but he is now wide receiver number 13. He is your highest ranked wide receiver, has yet to crack your starting lineup this season. I guess you've already answered it, but that's going to change in week 4, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm definitely going over Calvin Ridley. I feel like I could go over Ridley or DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore plays on the better offense, so he has a better opportunity to score. So Michael Pittman will definitely be in the starting lineup. This offense looks great. I'm a little concerned about the hard matchup against the Rams, but I think that Michael Pittman's upside is a much higher than what Calvin Ridley's upside is for next week.
Okay. Anything else, Adam, before we move on to the next matchup?
Absolutely nothing. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Okay, let's get into
wait. Let me say one thing. I'm still a believer in Genty. I haven't given up on him yet. I'm still a believer. I think the game's coming. I'm still a believer. All right, go ahead.
I was going to say the third player you could start Pittman over would be Genty. We'll see. Hard to do. Hard to do. Okay, third game, third matchup. The leader after 3 weeks, the leader in the clubhouse, Mike and the Columbia Clown College advanced to 3-0. The only team without a loss,
Yeah.
3-0. Obviously the number one in the standings right now. Does it again with the points thing, 130. I mean, I feel like in all 3 weeks, he's our top point scorer, right?
Yep.
I would have to imagine. I
Yep.
mean, Sarah had a huge, really still,
Yeah, he is.
even after 184. Okay,
Yep.
very good. So 3-0, highest point total in the league. A good place to be after 3 weeks. Starting at the top, Baker Mayfield, 19 for 29, scores once. Not a huge game for Baker, but they did get the win over the Jets. The running backs, which is what we talk about every week with this team, Jameer Gibbs, man, last night,
Yeah.
incredible. That sonic duo of Gibbs and Montgomery showed up in a big way, unfortunately, last night. And then it's the guy that beat us in week one, James Cook, with 19 fantasy points. Not to mention the flex here, Javonte Williams, also gets the start here. 10 carries, 76 yards, caught 5 balls, did lose a fumble. So it's kind of a floor game, it seems like, for Javonte Williams at this point. 9
Yeah.
fantasy points, the number 6 running back in fantasy. The wide receiver side of the ball, Garrett Wilson, 10 for 13, got into the end zone. A nice day, 19 fantasy points. Although Mooney, 4 for 11,
Yeah.
that's a Michael Penix problem. He's got a Michael Penix problem. Drake London has a Michael Penix problem. They lose big time to Carolina. They get shut out down for the Falcons. And then Jamison Williams last night, I think he got a couple looks early in the game and then just sort of disappeared. And I heard a stat today, Adam, that Jamison Williams last year, and he had a really high yards per, like,
Target.
it basically it's actually the yards per route before you break. It's a kind of one of these advanced stats. It was 10 last year. It's 15 this year. So he is running longer routes. They're using him to pull the coverage apart in order for them to just gash the defense. Well, or just to gash with the running backs, get those linebackers to drop back and try to defend whatever he's going to do. So anyway, that's a long way of saying he's not really getting the targets. 5, 4, and 3 in his first few games. So headed in the wrong direction. Brock Bowers, 4 for 5, 38 yards, caught a 2-point conversion, but maybe he's still hurt. Maybe that was it knee issue that he had is not quite all the way healed. Get 3 from the kicker. Elliott gets 17 from the Bucs defense against the Jets. Really nice there. The big story on the bench, buried the lead a little bit here. James Conner we'll talk about later in the show, but he's out for the year. Trey Benson is going to be the new running back 1 for the Cardinals. 6 points in this one, but figures to have the majority of the work. Speaking of the majority of the work, J.K. Dobbins continues to do so with the Broncos. 11 carries, 83 yards, and a touchdown. Another nice day for Ravens alumni, J.K. Dobbins. So, looking at this squad this week, Adam, who is your beast?
I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson just because of the fact that he had Tyrod Taylor throwing him the ball. It didn't matter. He was still involved, still had 13 targets, had 10 catches. Didn't matter who was throwing him the ball. He was scoring points, 84 yards, and a touchdown. Now the wide receiver number 8 in fantasy football. Very impressive against a Tampa Bay team. Again, Jets backup quarterback. Scores his best, has his best showing of the year thus far. So good for Garrett Wilson. Very talented player. It doesn't matter who's throwing the ball. And now in the top 10 for wide receivers so far.
Yeah, 8 targets minimum in every game this year. That is certainly, what you like to see from a guy that you drafted really high to be, one of your elite performers on this squad.
Yeah.
Okay, give me a bust this week.
I mean, I was going to go Jameson Williams, but we talked about him a little too much. So I'll go Darnell Mooney. You like the snap percentage, 86, 89, but has 11 targets in this one, but can't really do much with it. The Falcons inexplicably get shut out in this one against the Panthers. That's a bad day all around. Will Penix get better as the season goes on? I think so. But this team is Bijan Robinson's team. It seems like the whole offense is running through Bijan Robinson. So how much, do these secondary kind of targets, how much value do they have? London's going to get his looks most weeks. But, Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts, Ray McLeod, who is in that pecking order as that number 2 option in the passing game? You don't know, and right now, even though with the 11 targets, there wasn't really anything to show for it with only 44 yards.
As a person who doesn't own any shares of the Falcons, I believe you do not, correct?
Correct.
If you did, would you want Kirk Cousins to become part of the conversation here?
Kurt was just so bad. Yeah. He was so bad last year. That's a really, really good question. If Penix has a bad game against Washington, like they get shut out or only score 3 points, they have a bye in week 5. And that's if they do make quarterback changes, that's when they could do it. Now, what would I put the odds of that? I would put the odds pretty low that they're going to make a change. I think they're riding or dying with Michael Penix, but oh boy, that'd be an interesting conversation if Kirk Cousins came back onto the field.
Certainly would be interesting. There. All right, big question for Mike. I want to this team is so good. 3-0, all the points. I want to ask you kind of a fantasy philosophy question.
Okay.
And that is, for Mike, rounds 8 through 12, right? Yeah. So let's look what Mike did rounds 8 through 12. He got J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
In round 8.
Who and Javonte Williams. The number 10 running back in fantasy.
For Dobbins. Okay. Javonte Williams in the 9th.
Javonte Williams is number 6.
Okay. Pretty good. Chris Godwin in the 10th. Now, Godwin obviously hasn't done anything, but maybe back in the next 2. You take the injury discount. You get the value in the draft. You wait for him, stash him on the bench. A 3-0 team with a guy like Godwin coming back, yes, please.
Yes.
Gets him in the 10th. Really, that's a pick that you make when you're happy with how your first 9 rounds go.
For sure.
Right. That's a I'm confident in this team. I'm gonna get this value from Godwin.
Yeah.
And then the other guy to point out is Benson in round 12, who's suddenly, I don't know, you redrafting today, you're probably taking Benson in like the 4th round.
Yeah, 4th or 5th, probably. I mean, young running back out of Florida State, now has the full reins of the offense. I mean, you feel bad for James Conner, but, looking at Trey Benson's value, it has skyrocketed.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, the question here that I wanted to ask is just from a philosophy standpoint, are these the rounds, these kind of mid to late rounds, 8 through 12, are these the rounds that really championships are won? What's your kind of thought on that? You hear that as a cliche, but is that true to you?
I think it's kind of like the bookend a little bit. It's kind of like you have to hit on your first round draft pick. Like, you have to hit. So with Jahmyr Gibbs, he's definitely hit. I mean, he's number 5 running back in fantasy football. Definitely hit with that. And then you go into the later rounds now. You said J.K. Dobbins. Chris Godwin now is coming back. What's his role going to be? I'm a little probably more bullish on that than you are. But then you have Trey Benson. It's really just a plethora of riches for the running back position. I mean, he has 5 running backs you could start on any of these teams. Is that something where you try to package and try to do something? Maybe get another, a wide receiver. But, right now, why break something that's not broken? So, I mean, 3-0, most points. All signs are looking up for Mike.
Absolutely. And I mean, to your point, in round 8, what you're doing, the bookend conversation, this is the start of your bench, right? If you do what Mike did, which is you build your team with 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, a tight end, and a quarterback, you fill out your starting lineup essentially, and then you're picking, round 8. Who's going to be that first guy off the bench? Who's going to be that kind of, guy that can sort of come out of nowhere like a Javonte Williams, a guy I liked in the draft. So I love those
Yeah,
rounds for Mike, and I certainly think that they play an outsized role when determining fantasy championships.
for sure.
Moving on to the losing side, Dustin's team, the Berlin Banshees, 2-1 now. Missed that opportunity to keep a perfect record. 117 points in this one, definitely respectable for sure. Drake May had a nice game at the quarterback position, 2 touchdowns through the air, 19 fantasy points. Looking competent. They only scored 14 points, but I think better days ahead for May. The running backs, again, some of the best running backs in the league, Bijan Robinson and Kyron Williams combined for over 30 fantasy points here. James Conner, the unfortunate loss in the flex position
No.
this week, and going to be in a free agent pretty soon in our league after the unfortunate injury there. You lose James Conner for the year. Talking about draft picks, James Conner is a 4th-round pick for Dustin, so a huge, huge loss for that team. The wide receivers, though, again, respectable. Devontae Adams, 13 fantasy points. He scores for I believe the second week in a row, right? Yep. Week 2, week 3. Jalen Waddle also scores 5 for 6, 39. Drake London does not score, but still gets the 8 targets. It's that Michael Penix situation that we just got finished talking about. At the tight end spot, Tyler Warren, 3 for 5, 38. Better days ahead. Certainly, Dustin, we watched some football together this weekend, and I think Dustin alluded to the fact that he may be the tight end whisperer with rookie tight ends. So maybe that comment
Fantasy karma.
toned it down a little bit of fantasy karma there. Harrison Butker, 13.5, Broncos 9 on the bench. Khalil Shakir for 4 and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Not really sure that's too actionable. Shakir was not a guy that was highly drafted, and not a guy that is going to be a target monster, I don't think, for Bills. Not much else, Adam.
Nope.
But is there a beast to start out with in the starting lineup?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going to go with Drake May. 19 points here. He might have been my beast last week as well because he scored 26. But again, talking about quarterbacks and fantasy quarterbacks, you always like to have one, if you can get him, that runs the football. He runs for 7 times 45 yards. That is 4.5 points right there without anything else. He also throws 37 times for 28 to 68, 2 touchdowns. So with a nice, respectable 19 points, now quarterback number 6 on the season. He's throwing the ball a lot more than what I thought he was going to throw. 46 attempts in week 1, 37 attempts this week, 23 in week 2. But, the attempts are there. They don't seem afraid to throw him into the fire. And, if he can keep this rushing ability up, then he is a solid quarterback 1, maybe low-end quarterback 1 in that top 10 range very easily because of his rushing abilities.
And as a bad team from last year, their schedule is pretty good moving forward for basically the rest of the year. I believe they have one of the easier schedules in the NFL. That is the Patriots, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, how about a bust for Dustin?
So the bust for Dustin is going to be a player you mentioned, Tyler Warren. Only 5 points here. 68% snap count is also kind of odd to me after a 93% snap count in week 2. Don't really know what happened there. Maybe it was just sort of the look that they saw, that they wanted to exploit the 3 wide receiver sets a little more. But only 5 targets his season low, 3 receptions his season low, yards also his season low. I think this is some of the inconsistency with being a rookie that you're going to see. Not everyone is Brock Bowers from last year. I still think he's a very good tight end, but I think we can pump the brakes a little bit on being a top 5 tight end in fantasy football.
All right, and the question that I want to ask you about this team, obviously lost Jaden Reed to short-term IR last week, loses James Conner this week. Who is going to be the flex for this team, at least until Rashee Rice comes back in week 7?
So I think you have 3 options, I guess. Kenneth Gainwell, he's only plays 26% snap count, so you don't really love that. Shakir, who did catch a touchdown this week, did have 9 targets in week 1 as well. So the targets could be there. And maybe Zach Ertz. I mean, he's tight end number 7 on the season as well. Don't really love the snap percentage, only 52. So I think you have to go with Shakir and just hope that the targets really come in that Buffalo offense. I know Keon Coleman is kind of wishy-washy there in Buffalo as well. So, is he the main guy? Dalton Kincaid's also there. I think it's going to be a lot of hit and miss, but I think Shakir is the best option going forward at the flex position until, of course, Rashee Rice comes back.
Yeah, for sure. Next to Jake, I think Dustin has probably suffered from the most injuries. I think a team that we thought had a lot of depth has suddenly not so much depth right now for Dustin. I did want to note, by the way, Adam, I didn't put this in the show notes that I sent you, but Dustin has his two Falcons, Bijan and Drake London, on bye in week 5.
Oof.
So that's going to mean that you, Adam, are a lock to beat Dustin.
Oh, you mother! Why would you say that?
So there you go.
That's
there
awful.
You go.
I can't believe I play on week 5. That's funny.
Yep. So he will be without Rashee Rice, who doesn't come back until week 7, and will be without his top 2 Falcons weapons there.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Sometimes it better be lucky than good. Hopefully.
That's right. Absolutely. So just get to week 5. Just got to keep it together until then, Adam. It's just a couple weeks away.
And then Kittle will come back.
And then, yeah, that's right. That's right. I forgot about Kittle. All right. Moving on to the next game here. It's going to be Charlie versus Tom. We have the Reisterstown Rockets. I always want to say Rock Stars because that's what
it was. That
Scott's
before.
Team.
No, he was the Rock Stars before.
Was it Charlie before?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we got the Rockets. The sleeper app cuts it off after Rock, so I'm like,
fair.
Oh, shit. All right. So the Rockets advance to 1 and 2. Also, Tom is 1 and 2 as well. 121-42 to 98-7-8. The number 7 team for Charlie and the number 12 team for Tom after this one. So identical records, but separated by 5. You mentioned all the 1 and 2 teams that we have in this league. Charlie, big performance from Lamar Jackson, man.
Yes.
It was a rough night, but Lamar Jackson put up his totals here. Just 27 passing attempts, but did throw for 288 and 3 touchdowns. Ran it a little bit more than he did against the Browns, 7 times for 35 yards, 27 fantasy points, a really nice day there. The 2 running backs for this team, Kenneth Walker, 16 carries. There you go. You're looking for week 3 to give you kind of, hopefully it's confirming some of the things you've seen in the last 2 weeks. It's certainly confirming what we saw in week 2, Kenneth Walker dominating the workload. Breece Hall, just 9 carries here. That's a little concerning. Did get 6 targets for 31 yards, caught 4 of them, so that helps you a little bit in our league format. But 9 carries is not great in a game that was close. It was a 2-point game.
And Braylon Allen had 6 attempts in this one. He's not dead yet, folks. He's not dead yet.
Still a chance there. The wide receiver position got nice performances out of Nico Collins, 18 fantasy points, and Devontae Smith. We talked about the Eagles. It was not only a good day for A.J. Brown, but also for his wide receiver mate, Devontae Smith, with 16 fantasy points. Good to see both of those guys have a little bit of a resurgence after a rough couple of weeks for them. On the other side of it, you get kind of nothing really from Zay Flowers, who had a terrific first 2 weeks and then sort of disappeared to Mark Andrews in this game. And Debo Samuel, another guy that had great first 2 week struggles in this week, 3.9
Yeah.
fantasy points. Tight end Juwan Johnson, we talked about him before. It was a big waiver pickup for Charlie a week or two ago, 6 for 8 for 51. Certainly respectable at the tight end position. Chris Boswell with 3. Seahawks defense played very, very well against the Saints, 18 fantasy points. On the bench, Cam Scattaboo. Oh, man,
He's
21
there.
fantasy points, 6 yards a clip, 10 carries for 60, got into the end zone, and caught 6 passes for 61 yards. So, again, opportunities, that's 18 opportunities there when you combine his rushing attempts with his targets. So, pretty
Yeah.
good week here for Charlie, 121 points. Who was leading the charge as your beast?
So my beast is going to be Nico Collins. I feel like this was his real breakout. I know he had 12 points last week, but this guy is way too talented of a player to be scoring 4 points in week 1. He really shows up here with 18, 11 targets, 8 for 104 and a touchdown. I feel like he's kind of the unsung person in terms of wide receivers. Not like he's in that conversation with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, but I feel like he has the talent to be there. Now, can CJ Stroud actually get him the ball? That remains to be seen. Also has a bad fumble in this one as well. So, things are looking up. This is what you want to see. The 11 targets. CJ Stroud looking for him. Just need a little more consistency. He just needs to get the ball more in this Houston offense that's really struggling for playmakers on the offensive side of the ball.
All right. Where is your bust this week?
Okay, so we're going close to home. That's going to be Zay Flowers. And I wanted to bring a question to you. You mentioned that Mark Andrews had, a big breakout game, and Zay Flowers had a not so great game in this one. What do you think is closer to the truth? Zay Flowers this week compared to his 2 weeks before, or Mark Andrews this week versus his 2 weeks before? Who is closer to the truth here?
I'm going to say Zay Flowers, just because what he offers on the football field is so unique.
So you're saying Zay Flowers this week is not indicative of what his next,
That's right,
his future is going to be.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. I think I think he's going to make strides this year. He's not going to be the boomer bust guy that maybe we had the last season or so. I think he is going to be consistently closer to 8 targets per game, somewhere in that range, where is maybe 1 or 2 more than he had last year. So I think you're going to see his numbers tick up. I think you're going to see his floor come up a little bit as the season goes on. Andrews, with the situation likely coming back, likely coming back next week, hopefully for us. I don't know. We'll see. Now, granted, Andrews has had good performances with likely, but there's a lot of mouths to feed in a very dynamic offense. And when Lamar's only throwing 20 sometimes a game, granted, we got dominated in time of possession, I think, last night, but 27 targets a game isn't a lot to go around to all these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be more excited for Isaiah Likely coming back if he played defensive line, but he doesn't. So I would have been happy about that. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that Zay Flowers is the more trustworthy player at this point in their career. Maybe a sell high for Mark Andrews if some people don't pay attention. They just see that big number. Probably time to jump ship while the iron is hot, as they say. But I expect much better days for Zay Flowers. Just didn't really seem like he was part of the game plan in this one with only 3 targets on the day.
All right, and then lastly, before we move on to Tom's team, Cam Scattaboo.
Yeah.
On the bench, 21 fantasy points. The running back 20 all of a sudden after 2 great weeks, 2 pretty solid weeks. Just getting introduced to the NFL. Are you able to take a look at this starting lineup and figure out a way to get Scattaboo in there, or are you going to pass for now?
I think you move Devontae Smith out of the flex, and you put Scattaboo on the flex, and you get Debo out of the starting lineup.
put Devontae into
wide receiver 2, and then put
okay.
Cam Scatterbo in the flex spot, just with Scatterbo a little bit. You know, they did announce today that Jackson Dart will be starting. He is a running quarterback. Now, what we need to remember about running quarterbacks are, do they throw to running backs? Not really, because if they were to throw, instead of just throwing to the running back, they're just going to take off themselves. We see that a lot with Lamar. He doesn't really harbor that, catching ability for the running backs. So, dare I say, if Jackson Dart, starts for the full season, is 8 targets the most he's going to have in a game? It could be, just because of his running ability.
All right. That was my question, right? Yep. Okay. Yep. We'll move on. Anything else to say there on Charlie?
No, it's a talented team. Still a little bit concerned about Breece Hall, but 1-2, scores a lot of points here. It's a lot of football to play.
Okay, on to the losing side. Tom and the Finksburg Kinks. As I mentioned, 1-2. Now the number 12 in team in the standings. New cellar dweller this week in Tom's team. Michael Penix drawing the start here. Jaden Daniels was out for the Commanders, so Penix gets thrown in there. Ooh, it didn't go well. 18 for 36, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, 3 fantasy points for Michael Penix. Not a great outing there.
Nope.
Running backs. Ooh, again. No. Chase Brown, 10 for 3. Ooh, yikes. That Bengals team is not looking good at all.
They're in trouble.
It's really not looking good for Chase Brown.
No.
Saquon Barkley, we talked about the wide receivers. This was a wide receiver game. It wasn't a Barkley game.
Yeah.
18 for 46, fails to get into the end zone. Struggles at the wide receiver position. Tedero McMillan, 3 for 8, 48 yards. That's like a mediocre tight end line right there. Not what you're used to seeing. They won 30-0, but I think didn't really need to use their top weapon, which is an indictment of that Falcons defense, perhaps. On the bright side, Cortland Sutton, 6 for 8, 118 and a touchdown. Really good to see after the disappointing week 2. Sutton with 20 fantasy points. Alec Ayomanor, the rookie wide receiver, draws the start here for Tom. 11 fantasy points. He has been solid. He has been better than Ridley. Ridley was 1 for 7. Ayomanor was 4 for 5. So maybe the target that Cam Ward has better rapport with at the moment. TJ Hawkinson, speaking of quarterback rapports, Carson Wentz might have a little bit of a rapport with TJ Hawkinson. 5 for 6, 49 yards and a touchdown. That might just be the change in quarterback might be what triggers Hawkinson to perform as we're used to seeing him. Bill Krosky-Merritt in the flex, 9 fantasy points. Gets into the end zone, but not a whole lot of work. I mean, they split that backfield 3 ways this week between McNichols and Krosky-Merritt and Chris Rodriguez. So not a lot there. Brandon Aubrey, 8. Eagles, 13 fantasy points this week. And then on the bench, a couple bright spots. Matthew Golden, 4 for 4 for 52. The young rookie wide receiver for the Packers. And same thing with Caleb Austin, who has his second nice game of
Calvin
the season. Austin. What did I call him?
Caleb
Austin. Boy, I'm aging, and for talk about corpse, man.
I know. We're all aging.
Calvin Austin.
Yeah,
where did this guy come from?
Memphis.
Is he a... Did he?
Yeah, it says Memphis. It's college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He's been with the Steelers his entire career, though. Pretty sure.
They just haven't used him, huh? Well, anyway, 2 double-digit games to start the year. Tougher matchup next week with Minnesota, but has a nice game here. 3 for 5, 34 yards, and a touchdown. So, looking at this roster, who is your beast?
So, my beast is going to be, unfortunately, the obvious pick, and that's going to be Cortland Sutton with the big 20 points, 81% snap count, 8 targets, 6 catches for 118 yards. It kind of seems as, Brock or not. Oh my gosh, Bo Nix goes. See with names. Bo Nix goes. He kind of goes. You know, plus matchup against Cincinnati next week, so expect a big game. Then he has Philadelphia, the Jets, Giants, and Dallas. So a lot of plus matchups for a number one wide receiver. He is now wide receiver number 15 in fantasy. Good things ahead. This is the kind of stat line you expect for a caliber of player like Courtland Sutton, and you get it in week 3.
Yeah, Bengals, Eagles. What did the Rams, what did Puka and Devontae Adams just do to the Eagles? The Jets, the Giants. What did Dak Prescott do to the Giants? And then in week 8, Dallas. What did Russ Wilson do against Dallas? So definitely a nice schedule there for Courtland Sutton. He has a late bye, so he is going to be able to put a string of really good performances together, perhaps. Okay, how about where is the bust this week?
So my bust is gonna be Chase Brown. You kind of I'm not gonna do Michael Penix, but because kind of emergency quarterback that you're gonna need to plug and play. But Chase Brown, you're expecting him to have a little bit more as they lean more on the run game with Browning starting for the Bengals for the injured Joe Burrow. That is not the case. Only plays 55% of the snaps, only has 10 attempts, little involvement in the passing game. Going from Joe Burrow to Jake Browning is not good, but this is bad. I mean, everyone was bad. Every single Bengal was bad. And it was kind of shocking to me because I thought, he's a journeyman kind of quarterback. It's not, the drop off's not going to be that terrible. No, it was really bad. I don't think the matchup helped at all either. The Vikings have a very good defense. So better days ahead, maybe, but 10 attempts on three rushing yards, that is really concerning for Tom.
Yeah, worth noting in his defense, I think he was pulled close to the end of that game in that huge blowout. So maybe the snap percentage might be a little bit due to that, but certainly his carries have gone down significantly, basically by 5 from week 1 to week 2, and then went down again by 6 from week 2 to week 3. So not good news for Chase Brown whatsoever.
And okay, Tom, I mean, do the blowouts happen where he's not on the field? And that, 2 or 3 more of these blowout kind of situations, and you're losing a lot of fantasy value.
Yes, please, let's get the Ravens to play the Bengals soon, especially. I don't know when we play them, but boy, that would be what the doctor ordered for sure.
Oh, for sure.
At this point in time, I would love to play them earlier while they're trying to figure out what to do. Yeah, but fortunately, I think we play them late. Okay. Tom, the youth movement. We've seen 3 weeks now of a team that's basically comprised half of rookies or second-year players.
Yeah.
I'm going to name all of those rookies and second-year players, and I want you to tell me, comparing now to draft day, our draft, our Beltway Wars draft, do you feel like their arrow is pointed upwards, downwards, or just kind of sideways? They're what you expected. Where are they today compared to draft day? We'll start with the highest selected rookie on this team, Tataroa McMillan with the Panthers.
Yeah, last 3 weeks, 9, 10, 8 targets. Hasn't been really to do too much with them other than week 2 where he had 100 yards. I would say the arrow is pointing up for McMillan.
All right, he was the 5th round pick for Tom this year. I want to ask you about a big performer this week, Alec Ayumanor for the Titans. You certainly are following this closely with Ridley on your team. Where do you see Ayumanor after 3 weeks?
16th round pick, now wide receiver number 34. Seems to be, as the note says, the lone bright spot in this Titans offense. I would say the arrow is pointing up for Ayumanor.
For sure. He was 15% started and 50% rostered at the moment. So that rostership will go up.
Yep.
Kudos for plucking him in the draft. Mostly he's a waiver wire priority this week. Our league, he was drafted in the 16th round.
Yep.
All right. Bill Krosky-Merritt, the rookie running back for the Commanders. Tom took him in the 9th round.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him an even, kind of like he is what he is.
Yeah.
You thought with the injury to Eckler that he'd be a lot more involved than he is. He only gets 8 attempts on this one. It seems to be a true running back by committee with Rodriguez and McNichols. It looks like they're all going to have a role in this offense. So I would say he is in the middle just because of the uncertainty about the amount of looks he will have in each game.
I would agree with that. Matthew Golden, the 7th round rookie wide receiver for the Packers.
Yeah, nice game in this one, but I would say the arrow is pointing down for him just with, 2 points in week 1, 1 point in week 2. The snap percentage is going up, so maybe, ask me in a week or two, this might change, but I think as of right now, based on where you drafted him and what was the expectations, I would say that it is going down.
Yeah, could have had Rome Odunze, the next pick later in the draft. Ooh, boy. Yikes. Okay. Rookie wide receiver for the Lions. We saw him last night. Not a whole lot of them last night, but we did see Isaac Tesla.
I mean,
he was a 15th rounder.
Yeah, I mean, he's droppable. The arrow is so far down, I would say. 4% snap count, 29, 21, not usable. Behind 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like playmakers on offense, I would say. He's like the 6th option in this offense, so I don't think he needs to be rostered.
All right, and then the last two, I think I'm going to group them together. I think I'm going to answer for you. I think I'm going to say they're both pointing down.
Yep.
But second-year players, Michael Penix and Chase Brown, we've talked about them enough. But anything to add about either one of those two guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chase Brown, I might not be as far down on him as you are. I think that he is
really.
I think that Minnesota is actually just a really good defense, and it took him one game to figure out what his role is going to be. He's going to get more than 10 carries. I mean, with Jake Browning starting, just the opportunities themselves and the talent that he has, I think, it might not be as high as when Joe Burrow is. I don't think any of the Bengals playmakers are, but this is just, I mean, I think this could be his worst week of the year.
Well, yet to hit 3 yards a carry on the season.
True.
So far.
Not ready to give up on him.
Okay.
Yet.
All right. Not holding out hope for second-round pick Chase Brown. All right. Moving on to the next matchup. We have Brian versus Scott.
Okay.
We have the Ammonium Neon Tubes getting the win, 103-42 over 99.06 Scott's Westminster Wrecking Crew. Wrecking Crew. I'm going to remember it. It's still early in the year. All right. 2-1. Both teams now 2-1. The closest matchup of the week. Scott was down big time. Got a big performance out of David Montgomery late last night, 28 fantasy points. But it was Kyler Murray for 14 points. Just kind of mediocre. There is the name of the game for the Cardinals against the 49ers.
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard gets the work, but doesn't get the touchdown. Limits his ceiling this week, 8 fantasy points. The wide receivers kind of off. Jamar Chase.
Don't skip over. Don't skip over David Montgomery.
Oh, I said it. He was the lead. I didn't want to bury the lead. I said it first thing.
Okay.
28 fantasy points.
He looked amazing.
150.
He looked like Mark Ingram from 2019. It was crazy.
He certainly looked like the Lions from last year. I mean, boy, this team, it is one of the best running back duos in memory. I mean, it's just crazy. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were one of the best receiver duos, but that's not working out. 5 for 6 for 50 yards for Jamar Chase. Now the number 12 wide receiver. He had that big week in week 2, but aside from that, 3 points in week 1 and 6 points in week 3. Not great.
Nope.
Brian Thomas Jr., lots of talk around the Jaguars. 2 for 6 for 55 yards. Another miserable outing for Thomas. Metcalf gets 3 for 4 for 32. Gets the score for 10 fantasy points. Vlad McConkey, maybe kind of not the feature player right now in this passing attack for the Chargers.
It's so weird.
Not what you drafted him. It is weird. 6 fantasy points. His targets have gone down. His fantasy points have gone down in each of the first 3 weeks. Kyle Pitts, 4 for 6 for 39. Cam Little tacks on 5 points at the kicker position. The Cardinals with 6 over the 49ers. And then on the bench, boy, Quinshon Judkins, we'll talk about him in the question. Big question here coming up. Nice day. Kareem Hunt, 10 carries, still hanging around there, still fantasy relevant.
I told you during draft night. I told you he's still there. He is still there.
Interesting names to note. Brandon Ayuk, who will be back later in the season, is on the bench. Isaiah Likely, who might be back next week, is on the bench. Joe Mixon, who God only knows when he'll be back, if he'll be back, is also on this bench. So, and JJ McCarthy also hurt. Whether he returns, maybe droppable. I don't know.
Maybe.
McCarthy droppable. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
All right. David Montgomery, I'm guessing, is going to be your beast. Do you want to talk about him?
I mean, 12 carries, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns. Looked amazing. Again, looked like that vintage Lions offense from these past couple years. Shows that he is still, even though he's behind Jahmyr Gibbs, 37% snap count, he's still a viable flex option, I would say. He has the opportunity to score a touchdown anytime he touches the ball. He should get most of the goal line work as well. So good on him, 28 points. Now the number 8th running back in fantasy football. Definitely flex worthy going forward.
Are you going to put your love music over top of that one like you did for Lamar last
Absolutely
week?
not. That is only for the first love of my life, Lamar Jackson.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. What about a bust? Who's the bust this week for Scott?
Okay, so I could pick a lot, unfortunately, for Scott. And, it's kind of hard. I'm stuck between 2 because, and I had the similar concerns, but I think I have more of a concern about Ladd McConkey. Okay, so Ladd McConkey, 6 points here, 7 points. Keenan Allen is a fixture in this offense. I don't think anyone expected it. But it's a thing now. And now Amarion Hampton is also going to get his touches too, because he is way too talented not to get his touches. Quentin Johnson, who would have thought that he would be the number 2? Because he's the number 2 option on this passing attack right now. It goes Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, Ladd McConkey. And that is the pecking order for a team that still has, I'm not going to throw the ball, 40 times a game. I think Greg Roman is still there. So, with the amount of draft capital you spend on Ladd McConkey, I am very, very concerned about this. What's the outlook for him? I don't know. I don't know how this gets any better outside of an injury. So I am very, very concerned about Ladd McConkey. Also very concerned about Brian Thomas. I'll put him in there too. Very scary numbers here now. Wide receiver number 52. Had his season high in yards, 55 yards, but it's only 55 yards. This Jacksonville offense looks, or at least air attack, looks completely dysfunctional. Very, very nervous about Brian Thomas. He needs to get it going soon for Scott. And, Scott put a lot of draft capital in these wide receivers, and now every single one of them have question marks.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about a guy that is starting to kind of not have as many question marks as he did earlier in the year. That's Quinshon Judkins, the rookie running back on the bench. I said it last week in the game against our Ravens. He looked like the most explosive player on the field for the Browns. He follows up that 27% snap 10 rushing attempt performance with a 55% snap percentage, 18 rushing attempt performance here, over 5 yards a carry for the second week in a row, gets his first score, gets 2 targets in this one as well for the Browns.
Yeah.
I think it's probably time to get him into the lineup. So let me ask you, because I think it's tough, but
it is.
I want to just see, because I could make a case, honestly, for any of these guys, and I'm going to say all the names. I'm going to say Montgomery. Why? Next week he faces Cleveland, a Cleveland defense that has been really, really good.
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard has just not been that impressive against New England next week.
Mm-hmm.
Jamar Chase at Denver. Okay.
Yeah.
BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr. at San Francisco. DK Metcalf at Minnesota, versus Minnesota. Lad McConkey at the New York Giants. So, like, obviously those are really good names, but we
Yeah.
just talked about how you had options to pick when you were trying to pick your bust.
Yeah. I feel crazy saying this, but I mean, is it Brian Thompson you have to get out of the lineup until he shows it? Because we're at that point now where that Jacksonville offense looks so bad, or either Lad McConkey. I think it's one of those two. You know my position on running backs. I like running backs a little bit more if they're on an even playing field than wide receivers because they get handed the ball off instead of relying on a quarterback to throw them the ball. So it's just more opportunities for them to score points. So I think you have to keep Chuba Hubbard, keep David Montgomery, and remove either Brian Thomas or Lad McConkey, which is crazy to say. It's only been 3 weeks since draft day, saying that now Junkins is starting over Lad McConkey and Brian Thomas, and that's even a conversation that we would be having.
Yeah, I mean, worth noting, just to play the devil's advocate, Judkins does face the Lions that held Derrick Henry, kept him mostly in check last night. And then in week 5 faces the Vikings, who just kept Chase Brown very much in check. So maybe matchups on the tougher side, but Judkins certainly a player worth talking about and a player that's probably going to be starting plenty for Tom the rest of the season. Okay, on to the next matchup. My matchup. Last matchup, right? I think.
You didn't go over Brian's team.
Oh, why did I start with
I have no idea.
Why did I start with Scott?
You just love Scott so much.
Scott lost this game. We're going to leave Brian's team out. Okay. Well, let's go to the winner of this game.
All right.
Brian.
It's not so easy, is it, buddy?
It was close. I was so taken by the fact that Montgomery nearly brought Scott back. I mean, he lost this by like 4 points.
Yeah,
so it was not looking that way before last night. But the victor was Brian. He advances to 2-1. He's got the number 3 team in the league right now. It's no thanks to Bo Nix. We'll talk about the quarterback situation in a bit. But 14 for 25 gets a touchdown, but not very impressive. 13 fantasy points on the day. Isaiah Pacheco, we talked about him already. Kind of that's not working very well for the Chiefs. 5 points this week. Bucky Irving, man, insane. 29 touches in this game, 25 carries and 4 receptions, 11 fantasy points.
Yeah.
Doesn't get into the end zone, but man, that volume from a fantasy point efficiency standpoint, that wasn't great. But man, those touches are a career high.
Yeah,
for Bucky.
That breakout's coming. Just be prepared. That's coming. I am so for sure that breakout's coming. 25 carries is ridiculous in that offense.
He's good. He's really good. Also a very exciting player to watch. All the wide receivers, 4 of them in this game, all between 10 and 14 fantasy points. Jefferson, 5 for 7, 75 yards. Mike Evans leaves this game, but not before scoring his first touchdown of the year, 11 fantasy points there. Rome Odunze, 3 for 7, touchdown. Quentin Johnson, 6 for 10, 89 yards. You talked about the Chargers pecking order. Johnson is not last, apparently.
No, he is not.
He gets 10 receptions.
Wide receiver number 5 on the season.
Touchdowns in all 3. No, did not get into the end zone. Yeah, that's that's interesting. Otherwise, Trey McBride gets into the end zone here. 12 fantasy points for McBride. I'm sorry, that's Quentin Johnson. I wanted to keep talking about Quinshon Judkins.
That's fine. It's a fun name. I will say that.
It is. Tyler Loop 7, Falcons defense struggled in this one. That was a good start, I thought, but against the Panthers, they run up the score against the Falcons 30-0. And not much to talk about on the bench other than the fact that Chris Rodriguez, not a flashy stat line, but did have 11 carries in this game. So that Commanders running back room is going to be frustrating there for sure. But let's start talking about this starting lineup by looking at a beast this week.
So my beast for Brian's team, it's going to be someone that we haven't really talked about, an offense we haven't really talked about thus far, and that's going to be Rome Odunze. 13 points in this one. Had this low targets and low receptions on the season, but does score a touchdown. Now wide receiver number 3 on the season. He is the go-to target, unfortunately for me, by Caleb Williams. It's early and often. Has 4 touchdowns on the season. Looks really, really good. He is a beast, and I think he's going to be a beast continuing going forward in the season.
Yeah, think about it. Caleb Williams is not even like, he was good this week, but he wasn't great the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So Caleb is only going to get better, and that's just going to mean, like, what did you say? Sky high potential, sky high ceiling for Odunze moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay, let's figure out who the bust was this week.
So my bust has to be, let's see, I had one. Let's go with Bo Nix. This is you talk about tiers a lot in terms of draft, and it seemed like Bo Nix was kind of the beginning of that second tier for quarterbacks. After the Lamar Jacksons, after the Josh Allens, after the Jalen Hurts. That tier after 3 weeks should have been a lot lower because he is quarterback number 20 on the season. Does not very efficient, only 14 for 25 in this one. Low passing yards. Doesn't even run the ball that much. Had 8 attempts, but only 33 yards. Sacked twice. First 2 games, he throws 2 picks in the first game, 1 pick. Doesn't throw a pick in this one. But now, quarterback 20. He has Cincinnati next week, so that's, a good sign there. Philadelphia, Jets, Giants, Dallas. So with Cortland Sutton, these are a lot of good plus matchups. Maybe better things ahead. But after 3 weeks, not what you want to see out of a higher drafted quarterback.
Yeah, as you mentioned, QB number 20 on the season. I took as I was looking at the scores last night, and trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about with Brian's team, I noticed that Cam Ward is number 33. So that means that there is a team in the NFL that has 2 quarterbacks that are better than Cam Ward, because there are not 33 teams in the NFL. So the quarterback situation couldn't be much worse for Brian right now. But you mentioned the nice matchups ahead for Knicks. Like, if you're Brian, are you just trusting in Knicks here moving forward, or are you exploring the waiver wire, exploring trades, taking a look at if there's anybody you can pry loose from another squad to sort of bolster this important position?
Yeah, I think that with Bo Nix, as a fellow Bo Nix owner in another league, I think you're just rolling it. You're just, ride or die, as they say. Especially with these upcoming weeks, these plus matchups, he has the capability to score 20 to 25 points in fantasy football. So, I think you're rolling with him going forward.
Okay, we've talked about Brian now. Sorry about Brian leaving you out there, not giving you your rightful place as the first person to talk about there in your victory over Scott. Moving on to the final matchup. That's my matchup here, 96.02 to 89.92. A close one. Came down to the wire last night. So certainly something that I had lost hope in. Tried also to grab some fantasy karma. I guess it worked. I get the 7-point victory or so, closer to 6. To move to 2-1, the number 4 team in the standings. Caleb Williams, we talked about it. 29 fantasy points. He was the second QB2 this week. I think he's number 3 on the season. He was QB1. I guess he did he outperform Lamar? I guess he did. Yeah, great performance. Got solid production out of the running back position. Tony Pollard, 16 carries. Jalen Warren, 18 carries.
Yeah.
I think I heard that 18 carries may be a career high,
Okay.
potentially for Jaylen Warren, which is good news for sure. 12 and 10 fantasy points, respectively, out of Pollard and Warren. Started 4 wide receivers this week. Most of them struggled after breakout performances. Last week, Malik Neighbors back down to earth, 2 for 7. Total incompetence from the Giants in not being able to figure out how to get him the ball for more than two receptions against the Chiefs. And Coleman drew the start here. Felt good about it. I thought if there was a spot to start Coleman, it would have been that game against Miami. He struggles in this one for 3 fantasy points. T. Higgins, kind of that
Yikes.
general Bengals depression morass that they're in. 2 fantasy points, just 1 for 2. Not great. But it was Amon-Ra St. Brown last night coming through in the clutch for the Lions in more
Man.
ways than one. He went 7 for 8, 77, and a touchdown for 17 fantasy points. Tight end, Travis Kelce may be washed, 4 for 7, 26. At least he got 7 targets. I'll hang my hat on that, but certainly has yet to have that kind of trademark Kelce blow-up performance. Will Lutz kicked in 8, Bills 5 points over the Dolphins. And then on the bench, I guess the good news is Facial Tootin continues to get some work, continues to look good there for the Jags. 6 for 21, but gets another touchdown here. And then Henderson, Travion Henderson.
Yeah.
A high pick for me. I was relying on him. Lost a fumble a game or two ago. Kind of took a back seat to Ramondre Stevenson. And then we come back in week 3. Stevenson fumbles twice. Gibson also in that game fumbles once. And Henderson picks up 11 carries.
Yeah.
So potential opportunity there. A slight crack for Henderson to potentially climb back into more where I drafted him to be.
For sure. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's coming. I think a couple more weeks and that's his job.
For sure. I certainly hope so. But anyway, how about I think there's probably just 2 options here for a beast. It's probably either Caleb Williams or Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I'm guessing it's Caleb Williams.
Okay, let's go with Caleb Williams, even though you talked about him, but we'll go with him since you're stealing my lead. That's fine. Now, number 3 quarterback in fantasy football. Only throws 28 attempts, but 19 completions for almost 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. Doesn't rush the ball really at all here. They bring in Ben Johnson in the offseason. They bring in some pieces as well in terms of, they still have DJ Moore. Rome Odunze takes a step forward. Luther Burden also as well. Colston Loveland is, starting to get his feet under him. Cole Kmet also still there. I think he caught a touchdown in this one. So now the Bears are becoming more of an offensive. They have more of an offensive identity. They're not just running the ball with DeAndre Swift. Caleb Williams is getting more comfortable. It's showing in the fantasy stats. He is now number 3. And this is an offense that, can be kind of scary. They have the Raiders next week. You are starting all your Bears if you have the Raiders next week.
Yes, I think I will be including Caleb Williams. All right, a bust. Pick your wide receiver of choice.
Yeah, because this is a conversation I kind of want to get into a little bit just with the quarterback change. That's Malik Neighbors. Had a very down game after a huge game in week 2. 92% snap count, 7 targets, which is season low, 2 receptions, also season low with yards as well. Russell Wilson is a capable quarterback for, people that have wide receivers, in fantasy on teams that he leads. Now you have Jackson Dart, kind of an unknown rookie quarterback, runs the ball. How concerned are you, going from Russell Wilson, who's an established NFL quarterback who knows how to throw the deep ball, to now a more unknown Jackson Dart? I think out of all 3 of them, you want Jameis Winston to be the quarterback in this one because he just chucks the ball up and hope it lands correctly.
It's kind of one of those situations where it's like the lowest floor but the highest ceiling. I feel like, if Jackson Dart comes in and just sparks this offense and Cam Scattaboo kind of continues doing what he's doing and forces teams to respect this Giants offense a little bit more. If this can become the youth movement in the NFL with a young quarterback, a young wide receiver, and a young running back that are all doing their part, that could be really exciting. There could be certainly growing pains, and I'm prepared for that to happen for sure. Obviously, you can't sit him, but definitely something I'll be monitoring as Jackson Dart takes the field next week.
For sure, for sure.
Okay. Well, the interesting thing, it was the wide receivers that struggled this week. We didn't really have to talk about the running backs very much, but it was the quarterback position and the running back position that we talked about as maybe being the most concerning in last week's podcast. How do you feel about those two positions after week 3?
So I think you got your established quarterback. I think Caleb Williams is the guy. I think you're riding with him. He's shown that he is a capable quarterback one in fantasy football. Tony Pollard, he kind of just does his Tony Pollard thing. He gets around 15 to 20 carries, he gets around 50 yards, and he scores a touchdown. Jaylen Warren, kind of the same thing. He has the job, which is good, but how good is he? I'm not really too excited about that. I am excited about Travion Henderson and maybe even Tootin as well. I could see them kind of seeding some work, especially Henderson being more involved in their offenses. So I would say in terms of the quarterback and running back position, quarterback definitely a lot higher on than I was a couple weeks ago. Running backs maybe just slightly higher, just with Henderson hopefully getting more work.
I agree. I feel a little bit better than I did last week. And it's so funny because it's like I was the lowest scorer in week 1 and the second lowest scorer in week 2. So week 3. Great
Yes.
week 2, but sandwiched in the bread pieces were not very good there. Okay, last team that we're talking about here. He was the lowest scorer this week. It is Alex and the Owings Mills Ozempic. This team, certainly in terms of a scoring, this was a very Ozempic scoring type week. Not a lot of meat on the bones here for Alex. 89 fantasy points. It wasn't due to Josh Allen. A very efficient day. 22 for 28, 3 touchdowns. Spreading the ball around. Got 4 carries for 25 yards. 23 points is a great day for your elite quarterback. Running backs were a little bit more disappointing. Derrick Henry fumbles again, 12 carries, 50 yards, did get the touchdown. Looked really impressive on that run, but at the end of the game, just 12 carries. Wasn't able to do what we hoped he would do last night. Same thing with DeAndre Swift, 13 carries for 33 yards. The efficiency just not there for Swift in this one. Does catch 3 of 4 balls for 45 yards to salvage his day for 9 fantasy points. Receivers were the big question mark, and let's just say they were all bad for right now, and then come back to them. McLaurin, Judy, and Marvin Harrison Jr. Tack in Wan'Dale Robinson. It was a shit show at the wide receiver position for Alex this week. Tucker Kraft, 4 fantasy points. May have been hurt. Kind of had a midweek injury pop up. He ended up playing through, but maybe was not fully healthy in this one. Cameron Dicker, the kicker, 11 fantasy points. Same with the Commanders against the Raiders. On the bench, Emeka Egbuka, rookie. How is he still on the bench?
Yeah,
Man,
that's weird.
He's continuing to do it. He's wide receiver 10 on the season. Now, definitely, I think you're going to see him get in the lineup with potentially Godwin being eased back in, and Mike Evans looks like he'll miss a couple weeks with the hamstring.
Yep.
It looks like he could be, at least have a week or two of like number 1 target status for Baker Mayfield and the Bucs.
For sure.
We'll see. Okay. So, on this team this week, where is the what is it? A beast. I'm getting tired.
Yep. It's hard. You have to go Josh Allen because he's really the only one that hit his projection marks. 28 attempts, 22. He didn't really need to do too much in this one. Had 3 touchdowns. Didn't even run the ball that much. But now is the number 2 overall quarterback doing what top drafted quarterbacks do. Nothing really much more to say to that. He is a start and forget type of player. He will have his huge weeks like he did in week 1. He will have his somewhat mediocre weeks like he did in week 3. He'll have those, but he has the possibility of each and every week winning your week. He can throw up a 40 bomb anytime. So Josh Allen is my beast for Alex.
Okay, I'm going to wrap Bust into the question because we have to just talk about the wide receivers as a group here.
Okay.
This is the elephant in the room with Alex's team.
Yep.
Marvin Harrison, drafted as 3.8 in the Beltway Wars draft. He's number 42. He's the 42nd wide receiver on the year.
Yeah.
Harry McLaurin, round 4, wide receiver 58.
Yeah.
And Jerry Jeudy, round 6 pick, wide receiver 61.
Yeah.
Does have Wan'Dale Robinson, round 16 pick. He's wide receiver 17. And the rookie, Emeka Egbuka, round 7 pick. He's wide receiver 9. Had he started Egbuka this week over any of those guys, Jeudy, Wan'Dale, Marvin Harrison, he would have won this week against me. So just what do you make of this wide receiver situation right now with all these guys and the disappointing starters?
I mean, it's like everything you could ever be concerned about all rolled into one, right? It's Marvin Harrison, a very talented player that can't do anything. Terry McLaurin, who held out the entire offseason, now is questionable. So he's now already injured without getting his feet out from under him. Jared Jeudy kind of, had a resurgence in Cleveland, but now has been disappointing again. Wan'Dale Robinson, second wide receiver on a bad offense. He had that one blow-up game in week 2, but other than that, nothing too much there. So, every single situation that you don't want with a fantasy wide receiver, he has 4 of them, which is bad. I don't really think that needs to be said, but yeah, definitely concerning and could torpedo his entire season.
I agree with that. All right, one thing before we get out of here, last bit of chatter to do here. Sure. I forgot to do this last week, but I think we typically take a look at the matchups from for week 4 at the end of the show, right? Did you want to go do that?
Sure. So next week we have the Union Bridge Badgers against the Columbia Clown College, 3-0 versus 1-2. Yippee for me. Owings Mills Ozempic against the Finksburg Kinks, 1-2 versus 1-2. Pratt Street Po Boys, 2-1 versus the Reisterstown Rockets, 1-2. Pasadena Pulverizers, 1-2 versus the Westminster Wrecking Crew at 2-1. Berlin Banshees, 2-1 versus the Timonian Neon Tubes at 2-1 as well. And the Penn Prairie Wolves, 1-2 versus the Curtis Bay Chum Buckets, 1-2 as well. So a lot of the 1-2 teams going against each other. We'll get a better idea about how the standings may look like at the end of the season after week 4. But a lot of exciting matchups. Hopefully, I can give Mike his first loss of the season.
All right, very good. Well, thank you, Adam. Thank you, everybody. Good luck in week 4. We will see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening and your support. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify.